How does an overcomer deal with an atheist? Well, let's talk about it. Can you win an argument with them? No, not necessarily. Should you? Let's just take a look at it. Some famous atheists: Dawkins, Hitchens, Dillahunty. Isn't it Sam Harris? No, there's just different people. There's different kinds of atheists. Kind of like the top intellectuals call themselves agnostic atheists, meaning they do not believe in the existence of God, which is atheism. A means no theism. Theism means God. No. And then agnostic means not having knowledge, because Gnostic means knowledge. So they don't have a knowledge of the existence of God, and they also don't believe because of the evidence he exists. Now, their argument is, on their side, science, physics, the physical world. And of course, the theist, which would be a person who's a Christian, we'll use that for instance, it could be another religion, but the Christian who claims there is a God, theism. Of course, Christians are monotheistic, one God, instead of polytheistic, multiple gods. So what does this mean? The atheist always wins the argument by saying, you make the claim as a Christian, okay, that there is a God, okay, which means you make the claim, now you have the burden of proof. Well, outside of a miracle actually occurring right in front of everybody, for a Christian, you can't go to the physical world and say, here is the existence of the supernatural world, because the supernatural world doesn't exist in the physical world. If it did, it wouldn't be super, okay, or supra, separate, outside of nature. Okay, God is a spirit, a divine spirit. And you got heaven, it's a different dimension. He's not in the physical world. Now, could he show up there? Sure. Now, but to deal with an atheist, they want you to present physical proof that God exists in the physical realm. And of course, Christians try to go to the argument that if you look at creation itself, it proves there's a creator. The banana deal, what was that? Living Waters Ministries, or the tree. And the atheist would say, well, then who came first, the chicken or the egg? And what it does is, to a believer, someone who knows God exists and has had spiritual rebirth, they can look easily at creation and see God in everything. Okay. To an atheist who doesn't have a spiritual rebirth, they have no relationship with the Spirit of God, they're only looking at the physical world. And you'd say, well, God created the tree, and they'd say, no, a seed landed on the ground and grew into a tree. And so you're arguing against somebody that plainly only looks at the physical world. And God is not in the physical world. He's in heaven. And don't confuse that with the fact that he can come in and alter things in the physical world. Here's a good example. If you were to say to an atheist, well, if God would show you a miracle, would you believe? And they would probably, if they were of a higher order of thinking person, they would say, no, not necessarily. I could see a miracle, but that still doesn't prove God exists. When I was young, I told the story before, I had my thumbnail knocked off. I hit my thumb, this thumb, with a hammer in a construction site. I was very young, knocked the nail totally off. Had the nail in this hand, no nail on that thumb, zero nail. And I threw the nail down. All of the construction workers saw it. Everybody, and then I wrapped it up in a rag and I kept working the rest of the day. And they said, what happened to you? And I go, look. And they go, ah! And then I went home and I showed everybody, relatives, people, neighbors, everybody seen no nail. The next morning when I got up, God miraculously healed my nail. Sometime during the night it manifested. I woke up with a brand spanking new nail. And I go out and I say, remember my hand last night with no nail? Look what God did. And I'd show him a brand new nail. The one thing that struck me about that, it was amazing to see this creative power of God that actually worked. But God did this to me, I believe, to show me the reaction of people. When I walked out and started showing people, I'd say, look at the brand new nail. Remember last night I had no nail? They said, yeah, I remember. Well, look what God did. He gave me a brand new nail. And if I'm the person looking, they would go like this. They look away. And they don't want to talk about it. They didn't want to answer. They were like, get this away from me. And every single person at work, and all of them did that, except for Gary, the person I was helping, who basically was teaching me about Jesus. And I later joined the church he was involved in. The only time I joined the church. And they believed in the healing power of God, and you had to exercise faith. But the point is, you could show people miracles, and would it really make a difference in their life? Some people, most, no. Because Jesus had multitudes of people follow him, and when he was performing miracles. And the minute he started talking about making choices, take up your cross and follow me, you can't put new wine in old bottles, you can't serve two masters, and he is the Son of Man that came to earth, and he forgives people's sin. When he started talking about that, the sin issue, and living a righteous life, the multitudes left. They turned sad-faced and left him. They didn't want to see it anymore. They wanted to watch him do the show, but they didn't want to change themselves. But back to the atheist thing. So what do you do with an atheist? You tell them the truth. Very simple. I can't prove the supernatural exists to you in the physical world because the physical world is not supernatural. If supernatural existed in the physical world, it wouldn't be super, it would be natural. So, unless you have a born of the Spirit experience, unless the Spirit of God comes to you and reveals himself to you, you're not going to be able to understand it. So we can't even talk. I can't win an argument with you, and they will keep trying to circle back and get you to prove, well, you make the claim. Oh yeah, I'll claim there's a God, but I can't prove it to you because you're blind to him and you will not be able to see. And then they'll try to ridicule you and say, hey, there's nothing here that we can discuss. And when you watch Christians wear themselves out trying to argue over minutia or all kinds of little crazy things of science and mathematics or physics and all of this, and they come up with all of these arguments to prove God exists in the physical world, they're beating their arms into the wind wondering why they can't fly. It's totally a waste of time. Most of those people are involved in the wrong kind of Christianity anyhow. But to atheists, can an atheist change his mind? Well, if God has chosen this man and he calls him, well, maybe he's chosen him. But if God decides to call him and he receives the call, yes, they can change. And many of the atheist people are involved in an anti-Christian agenda. They hate Christians, many of them because they're involved with sodomy. And there's a whole bunch of them. And the reason they're atheists are they hate God. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of that. But there are some in there that are not that way. They're more the scientists, doctors, people in college professor, places of higher education, and they just don't see the evidence. So they are atheist in the fact they are agnostic. And they would be honest enough to say, I can't prove God doesn't exist, but I don't think you can prove he does. So therefore, I don't have evidence enough to believe he exists. And there's a certain ring of honesty to that. Without God calling the person or being revealed in the Spirit, they're not going to understand the Spirit. They can't. So all you can do is tell them that you do, and you put all your faith and trust in Jesus. And then you can shock them a little bit. If you say, I'm different than what you see out here in the majority of Christianity, I don't believe that church leaders, preachers, pastors, or anything should ask for money, beg for money, take money from people, because it's not in the Bible. Nowhere. That shocks them because they see Christianity as a money grab. And then if you were to say to them that the God of this Bible heals people through his miraculous power, I don't need the institutions of mankind. I don't need the insurance agents. I don't need to be in the good hands of Allstate Insurance because I have assurance in the promises of Jesus to protect me. Now, to them, you're talking really out there. But sometimes to atheists, I've had them actually say, well, if God did exist, and he was really the way this book, they've read the Bible, a lot of them. They say, well, you're absolutely correct in what you think. But I just don't see enough, they'll revert back to, I don't see enough evidence to believe he does. But I've had them they have enough happening upstairs to understand, well, if there is a God, and he created this world, it certainly wouldn't be hard for him to part the Red Seas. It wouldn't be hard for Daniel in the lion's den to have God shut the mouth of all those cats. Okay, it wouldn't be. Because any God, praise Jesus, any God that has the power to create everything, like it says Jesus is the creator. He has to be God. All things were created for him and by him. So Jesus is God. God manifests in three different ways, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's not three people or three persons. That's one God manifest in three ways, and he can do it all at once. So the point is, with people that are atheists, don't waste your time trying to prove God exists in the physical realm when he's in heaven. Okay? Because there's no argument to prove the supernatural exists in the natural. And if it did, it wouldn't be super. You're not going to be able to convince them. And but you can tell them that Jesus has the power and did create everything, so therefore you put all your faith and trust in him. And when you start talking that way, you'll get their attention because they've never heard it before. You don't hear this from 90-some% of the watered down, unfaithful Christian churches. They put all their faith in the institutions of man, which is a mistake. God bless you.